Split your 100 points among these 6 quality of life factors, and sure enough, among small companies, recreation open spaces is the leading factor. Quality of life is the leading factor. Quality of life recreation open spaces. Not to a large number. Why? Large companies, the focus is on costs. Large companies have obligations to their stockholders. They have to maximize return to their stockholders. Small companies, the owner of the company can take it where he or she wants, and they can trade off some income that they'll receive for living in Colorado. Large companies don't have that prerogative. So what do you draw from this? We know that small companies drive the economy. Your labor statistics told us in 2012, companies that are 5 years old or younger, which is basically small companies, account for all of this country's net job creation. Now, they only produce 5 jobs each, but those small companies drive the train. Significance of this. Most new business growth comes from small companies. 90% of the businesses in the US employ 10 or fewer people, and as I said, business owners can satisfy. They will go where they want to live. If you've got a nice place to live, they'll come, rather than be concerned about maximizing their revenue. So a couple of months ago, I was in Minneapolis, and I'm visiting with their chamber, the commerce up there. And this is what one gentleman in the chamber says to me. He says, "What's the biggest problem a business has today?" He said, "It's workforce. If you interview 50 businesses at random, I'll bet 49 would say my biggest problem is getting qualified workers. To get workers, this is the key phrase, you have to get people who want to be in your community because they love the community and it's got things to offer. If you don't have those things, like my daughter Christine, they're not coming." Another gentleman at that meeting, who was the incoming CEO from Minneapolis, said this. He said, "I've got 80 people, maybe over 100,000 in this operation. All of them are young, aggressive, highly compensated people. They went to the best schools in the country. They could go anywhere they wanted. They're the A-list players in the business world. I need in this community things that A-list players want." Do you have anything to do with business relocation? Of course you do. So 2 years ago, I did a series of focus group interviews for Trust of Public Land that I'm involved with around the state of Texas. So I had it on the Squawk Box, and we had about 6 or 8 people on each of these. We did 4 of these calls, conference calls, and they were the leading political, philanthropic, civic leaders, business leaders in the state of Texas. One of the gentlemen on that call was from Dell in Austin. He made this observation. He said, people working in high-tech companies are used to there being a high quality of life in the metropolitan areas in which they live. If we at Dell go and recruit in these areas, we've got to be able to demonstrate to you the quality of life in Austin, the least comparable, or they won't come. It's not just about salary, it's about what's the community like where I'm going to live. And then he said to me, "Crompton, turn off your machine." I was recording him. He said, "I'm going to tell you something which I don't want recording, I don't want you putting in the report." He said, "We at Dell have got an outfit camped up in Seattle. Their mission in life is to recruit and steal people from Microsoft." And he said, "We can't move them." And he said, "It hasn't got anything to do with salary. I can pay them as much here or more than they're making at Microsoft. I'd pay them a whole lot more because life's cheaper in Austin than it is in Seattle. But I can't move them out of Seattle because of the quality of life here. I can't shift them to Austin." Do you have anything to do with attracting businesses? Of course you do. You invest in parks, recreation, ambience, trails, arts, then you create a business climate. You create where the talent wants to come, the businesses follow the talent. Do your taxpayers and your elected officials know that? You stress that in your presentations to them in your roles. Have you talked to the business leaders in your community about the importance of what you do? Have you used those testimonials in your presentations to the City Council? That's how we move forward in repositioning ourselves. Let's talk for a moment about reducing taxes. You say parks and recreation, reducing taxes. So let's go back to this diagram. That's farm forest open space for every, which includes parks, for every dollar in revenue it generates, 35 cents in expenses. Residential development costs us. And so using that, let's talk about the city of Napierville, where I was a few years ago. Napierville is an enclosed city on the edge of Chicago, it's a suburb of Chicago, about 150,000 people. There was one part of the city called Section G, still to be developed, the last part of the city. They had a master plan, and the master plan had projected there to be 700 people, 1820 would be school age, and 125 age of open space. So Crompton and his troops modelled it, we mucked about with it, and we upped the open space. The optimal one we found was we went from 125 to 205. What was the impact of that? There was less development because we had more open space. So there was reduction in school-age population to 1104, which was 760 children. And so the result of that, one less school to build and operate. And the cost savings from not having to build and operate that school was substantially greater than the revenues from residences on the additional 80 acres of area. And we have a city who made a conscious decision to create open space rather than allow homes to be developed on it to keep taxes down. A very interesting example. So let's move on to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is up in New York State. Fiscal is a small community up in New York State. The fiscal impact analysis revealed that they did nothing and they allowed it to build out with homes. Then the increased cost of the revenues, then the homeowners would have to pay $250 a year for it. The break-even value, which a new homeowner where the revenues would exceed the cost of $300,000.
Who's drinking?
So, if we look at what would happen if you purchased development rights on farms in the area. That means you would allow the farms to continue, but you would not allow building to take place or houses on them. And they found the break-even rate was about $10,000 an acre. That's the annual cost would be $250 if they did nothing. And so what did they do? They purchased the development rights on 1,200 acres. They used incentive building, transferred the rights on 200 acres, mandatory trustees for 600 acres, so they protected 2/3 of remaining open space. Net bottom line, the annual cost of purchasing development rights was $50.
You're the only one that has your name.
They hadn't done it.
I thought it already.
You're the only one. Nobody
The
else
life
has
of the
their
bonds,
name.
25 years, $200 a year, homeowners save $5,000. We have got communities now engaging and investing in parks and open space because it reduces the taxes which they will be stuck with if they allow it to go to development. Very interesting perspective. Let's move on to retirement. There's a new, clean growth industry in America. There's a growing number of retired, active, money, people in excellent shape. And we are all trying to attract the Grampies. Us Grampies are an important economic development tool. Why? Well, look at what has happened in terms of availability of leisure time. In the early 50s, these were the ages of exit from the labour force, and here they are in 2011. So females have gained 7 years, males 5 years. Life expectancy's gone up by 5 years for males and 5.3 for females. Add those two together, then there's an extra 10 years for males now of leisure time they didn't have back in the 50s, and there's an extra 12 years for females of leisure time, and clearly they're a primary target market. From an economic development perspective, if I have 100 retired households coming to town with a $40,000 annual income, and if I put Social Security with your private pension scheme today, $40,000 is quite common, then I've got a new $4 million annual payroll coming to town, if I can do 100 of those each year. And these people are relatively wealthy. These are the net worth of households. The average in America here at the top there is $80,000. Sorry, median net worth is $68,000 there. If you look at the over 65, whereas the average is 68, for over 65, the average is 170, 65 to 194. So in terms of assets and wealth, we at this income group are much higher than anybody else in the economy. If I look at per capita income of this group, you look down here and you see the per capita income of each age group. When you get to the 65 to 74 age group, it's 21,000 per capita, per person after tax. So for two people together, it's about 43,000. You compare that to the national average of 19, and you see that seniors in that 65 to 74 age group are wealthier in terms of income than the national average. And so they become a group that has plenty of time, they have plenty of assets, and they have plenty of money. They're an appealing economic target market. Their income rolls in irrespective of the business cycles. That pension comes in, business cycles go up and down, that pension comes rolling in. They're positive taxpayers, as I pointed out earlier. They have no kids in the school system, so they generate revenue from their homes. They're not a burden on the homes. They contribute to development of the healthcare industry. They're wealthy. College Station has become a regional health centre because of all those Aggies coming home, all those retirees coming home. We now got 3 major hospitals in town. Well, it's amazing. And all kinds of specialisms around them because those Aggies are coming home. They're generating this healthcare industry. They're a volunteer pool, of course. They are major volunteers. And of course, they stimulate housing and retail, but they don't put pressure on the job market. So my Chamber of Commerce has specialist people now who go to these trade shows wherever around and on these senior shows around to persuade people, come to town, come to town, come to town. So when people come to town, what do they look for? They look for amenity-rich communities. That's what you do when you're retired. And it's not just to occupy time with recreation, but recreation is how they meet people. It's how they socialize. It's how their groups come together. Do you have anything to do with this? And of course, this is an active lifestyle kind of a group. Look what Sun City and Leisure World sell. They sell recreation. If you want these people to come to town, you have to provide these amenities, and it's an economic development tool rationale that brings them here. Retention is as valuable as recruitment. And so, a few years back, Crumpton and his troops went down the Rio Grande Valley, and we gave people there 40 reasons why people leave their community. This is what attracted them to the valley, we know that. It's the climate and the amenities. What is it? Why did you leave your city? We gave them 40 reasons why they would leave their community. Most of them came from the Midwest. And what did we find? Number one, those 40, desire to live in a more recreationally enjoyable area. Reason number two, get away from weather. Reason number three, live in a place where creation opportunities are plenty. And so the message here, ladies and gentlemen, is if you don't put in amenities for us grandees, then we're going to leave to go to a place that does. It's not only will you not attract new grandees, but you'll lose the ones you got. And so that's part of the economic equation, is retention as well as attracting new ones. Let me move on and talk about this issue. One of the great mysteries of my life is why Texans do not play cricket. I have given a lot of thought to this issue, because clearly cricket is a superior game to baseball. Because all you do in baseball is throw a ball and somebody swipes at it. Now in cricket it's much more challenging because in cricket not only does this ball come legging it down you at 90 miles an hour, but it just doesn't come through the air, it just tricks through the air and tricks on the ground. More than that, in baseball, you're not allowed to heave it at someone's face, because in cricket you are, that's part of the game. I mean, it's a much more intricate, challenging game than baseball. And of course, it's the second most popular sport in the world, after soccer. I love it. You'll have a World Series. You'll be people allowed to play, and you lot, some World Series, which is great. And of course, you're aware, of course, you have a rich heritage in cricket. That the first international sporting event between nations in any sport ran for 18 years, from 1842 till 1860, in the beginning of the Civil War. And what was that sporting activity? It was the annual International Cricket Games between the United States and Canada, which in the United States were held on the sporting fields of Harlem, and in Canada were held up in Toronto. So you have a rich, and of course, when Mr. Olmsted built Central Park, he put in cricket fields, didn't put in baseball. So you have a rich heritage. So why is it Texans don't play cricket? Well, the reason is because there's no cricket fields. Now, Grand Prairie, in its great wisdom, has created cricket fields, and people flock to play cricket in Grand Prairie. Because you see, in basic cricket, because of all bounces, it has to have a very smooth field. You can't just play a really bit of rough stuff like we have in basic. It's a very smooth field because it bounces. So what would happen if we had smooth cricket fields? What would happen is what's happening in Grand Prairie. The colonials, us lot, would come in, and it would just like soccer. I mean, I arrived in soccer in College Station in '74, they didn't have a clue what it was about, so us colonials taught them, and now soccer dominates. The same thing will happen in cricket. So that once you all understand how to play this game, everybody will recognise the superior baseball, and so we will have a whole cricket stuff mentality. But what happens when you start doing it? Well, to play cricket, you need stuff. You need a helmet, and you need a box, and you need batting gloves, and you need a bat, and you need some pads, and you need some wickets, and you need some bails, and you need a cricket ball, and you need stuff. Because when you start, you wouldn't have any stuff, so you would have to, import it from the civilized countries of the world, like Bangladesh and Pakistan and so on. But after a while, Americans, being what they are, would figure out we could make the stuff. We could do it here. And the whole industry would grow. Well, so Fred Olmsted, back in 1870, after he built Central Park in New York, said 12 years ago, there was no pleasure driving in New York. There are now at least 10,000 horses kept for pleasure driving. Why? Central Park. We structured stuff around the park. We created an industry because we had a facility. And Fred later on talked about enjoying the use of the park, and a few years after it became available, the dinner hour of thousands of campers was perfectly changed. The number of private carriages kept in the city was increased tenfold, the number of saddle horses 100-fold, business of livery stable more than doubled, the investment of many billions in private capital, private conveyance very profitable, all because we built a park. And so the bottom line of this, ladies and gentlemen, obviously is there's a whole equipment industry that relies upon what it is you provide. So in College Station, thanks to Rick's great help, 7 or 8 years ago, Compton was lobbying for an ice rink. Rick very generously brought himself and brought the Dallas Stars people down to a key meeting in College Station where we had the civic leaders. We got them sold on it, thanks to Rick and the Stars and so on. We got invested, we got an ice rink now. As a result of that, Academy and those stores and Mount Gander in College Station sell ice stuff. They didn't until we had an ice rink. We created a business for them. And so my question to you is this. When the Pentagon lobby for money from the government, it ain't the Pentagon who's up there. It's Boeing, Lockheed, Martin, and all the other people who benefit from the largesse that the Pentagon dole out. So when your budget goes forward, are your people out there lobbying for you? Are the equipment retailers in your community lobbying for the budget? Are the people who supply you stuff lobbying for your budget? Are the concessionaires who live off you lobbying for your budget? Certainly they are in the tourism area. In my tourism hat, we have a tourism association, and they wheel out all of the folks who gain from tourism, hoteliers, restaurateurs, they wheel out them at the budget hearings. Are your equipment suppliers leading your effort? One of the reasons for our success with the state budget back in 2007 was we have David Gutler, who was the CEO of Academy, created, with our help, the Texas Outdoor Recreation Association, and they stood in front of the legislature and said, in Academy, we sell $1 billion worth of stuff in Texas. We have X thousand employees, and it depends upon our people having a place to use the stuff. That's state parks. You need to keep state parks flourishing because my business depends on it. That's a whole different game than the parks director going up saying, please help our budget, please help. I mean, we changed them. You need to have those people lobbying on your behalf. And if they're not, you need to get them organised to lobby on your behalf, because that's what everybody else is doing. Let's talk about enhancing real estate values in the last couple of minutes I've got. In College Station, we've got a golf course development. So back in the 80s, Mr. Young decided he was going to build us a residential golf course development. This thing, about 1,300 acres total, and he put 150 acres out of that 1,300 for a golf course. And he spent $4 million developing this thing back in the 80s. Now, in addition to that, subdivision lots on that east side of town were going to 30,000. There's several of those. Pebble Creek just one, there's several of them. We're going to 30,000 each. Pebble Creek averages on 3 lots an acre, so the golf course replaced 450 lots, and 30,000 acre, that's 13.5 million. So the cost of developing the course, the opportunity cost of the lots, then Mr. Young put $17.5 million into a park, into a golf course. What an inspired investment. I mean, Mr. Young was so concerned about the health and well-being of the people who would live in his golf course development that he put $17.5 million of his own money into it. What a generous, thoughtful person. But I looked again. Pebble Creek lots weren't 30,000. They were 40,000 on average. 10,000 more lots. And the only difference was he had a golf course. And there's 1,150 with 80 acres and 3 lots per acre, 3,450 lots at 10,000. Oh, he was putting up 17.5 million and making 34.5 million. It wasn't just being generous. It was actually making money. What an inspired idea. Where did he get it from? Well, you have to go back to the old country. And you will recall that by 1810, King George III had gone quite mad. He'd had to deal with you lot and the Boston Tea Party, and it all made sense. So by 1810, the Prince Regent was in charge, his son, who would become George IV, in 1820. And the Prince Regent was advised by his advisors, who said to him, Prince Regent, you own a bunch of land in North London here, out at Marylebone, and you've got a bunch of cows on it. And if you take the cows away and you put houses on it, you can make a lot of money. And the Prince Regent said, well, yes, that's lovely, I'd like to make a lot of money, but I am going to be the king, and so it's got to be upmarket stuff, you know, as befits a king. And so he hired John Nash. John Nash, a marvellous character. John Nash had built something like 40 stately homes around England. He'd gone bankrupt, he was a playboy, he had some challenges and so on. And he linked, of course, with Humphrey Repton. Repton took over from Capability Brown's most important landscape architecture in England, and Repton and Nash built these country homes, so Nash knew a lot about landscape architecture. He picked all that up, and he said to Nash, come and design my new housing plan. So Nash, Nash established central principles. I'm rooting around in the archives in London a few years back. Nash's beautiful handwriting. So here's what Nash said as the central principle of his plan. That the attraction of open space, free air, and city irrigation with the means of invitation exercise on horseback and folding carriages shall be preserved in Marylebone Park as the rodents and locusts for the monthly part of the country. So he's going to create a place where they can recreate. At Regent's Park, Prince Regent's Park. At Regent's Park, Nash brought in the principles of picturesque landscapes that have been developed by capability Brown and Windsor about Park and through Repton. And so created Regent's Park, created Regent's Park here. He built houses around the edge here, these black blocks. Those are the famous Nash terraces. If you go to London, you see the Nash terraces. 2,500 people lived in those terraces. These are the days when they were constructed, typically in the 1820s. And this was a private park. You paid 2 guineas a year, that's about $5 a year, as your fee, like condos today, for the upkeep of the park. And there was a carriageway around the edge where you strutted your stuff in the carriage, and the recreation park areas in the middle, and it was a private park. Usually, there were 1 or 2 buildings there. The reason Nash really got the commission from Prince Regent was because he agreed to marry the Prince Regent's concubine when she was 23 years old, and so he had some secret places in there. That's a whole different story. Anyway, so basically he created a park, Nash created Regent's Park. One of the great sights of London today, Regent's Park. And these were not ordinary terraces. If you go there, there's other class stuff, immaculate sort of stuff around the parks. Hugely successful real estate development based upon a park. I've got 4 minutes. And so, Liverpool, my home city, the most affluent city in the land at that time, the Industrial Revolution, there had been a report saying we need more open space in the industrial cities. Liverpool City Council said, well, proposed to provide a public park, subject to be discussed. The value of the land is so great in the city of Liverpool, the council have so many demands on it, they don't consider justified in incurring such an expense. An expense? Prince Regent just made a killing out of real estate. No expense here. Make money when you create parks. And so the company of Richard Ward Yates, who's a noblesse oblige, one of the Methodist minister and so on, decided to do for Regent's Park in Liverpool what in London. He bought some land, he had Paxton. Oh, I wish I had another 20 minutes. Paxton, one of the great men of England, left school at the age of 14, goes to work at Chiswick Castle, and then works in the whole Dunmore family, the wealthiest folks in the kingdom after the crown, and is persuaded to come to a park in Liverpool. And Paxton's parks were such an inspiration. He does Prince's Park. It's the same thing. What you see here is carriageway around the edge, private park, 4 entrances, houses around the edge, killing of a real estate development because they have private park and street fences. And so that's Prince's Park. And so now you're looking at the world's first public park, Birkenhead Park. So you can see it was Paxton design, right across the river, Mersey, houses around the edge. Brilliant park in the middle, 125 acres, 225 acre site, and that's the park today. You see the Mersey in the background, and the over there. They created the park first, but houses around the edge of it, and again had a very successful real estate development. Compton went rooting around the archives. Birkenhead Park found it cost $246,000 to build, sold 155 in lots. So it made a profit of 9,230. Put that in current terms, the thing made a profit of $15 million. You created parks, you made money, and so in 2 minutes left, we are now on a clipper ship. We're sailing from New York to Liverpool, where 3 young men on a clipper ship on the Henry Cole sailing the Atlantic Ocean, going on a 5-month walking tour of England. And when those young men got off the boat in Liverpool, Fred Olmsted and his stepbrother and a friend of his from Yale, he had dropped out of Yale, of course, because of health reasons, got off the boat in Liverpool for their 5-month walk around England. They went to the local baker. And the local baker said, Mr. Olmsted, if you're interested in parks, you need to go across the river to look at Birkenhead Park, this incredible park, which was opened in 1947 and we're now in 1847 and we're now in 1850. And Olmsted went to Birkenhead Park, and in his diaries, when Olmsted got off the boat and went to Birkenhead Park, in his Darris, who said, I saw a perfection I have never dreamed of. I cannot undertake to describe the effect of so much taste and skill as had evidently been employed, and all this magnificent pleasure it's high and reserved and forever people's own. We're requiring to pay for it. Why? The honest ones, the most wise and worthy people of Birkenhead, in the same way that New York is paid for too, which is their prison, and the hospital and the cleaning, as it is. Olmsted was in awe of Birkenhead Park. I'm out of time, but let me tell you, what Olmsted took back to the United States was not just Birkenhead Park, which he copied, of course. The Central Park is just, if you look at the Central Park, in fact, he went back to Birkenhead Park twice to make sure he's getting it right. Even, in fact, he invited Joe Paxton over to look at it and check it out for him. But what he also